we were playing a show at a festival, literally counted off, started playing the song, middle of the song, I'm in a chorus, stick breaks, flies, hits spacebar, stops the show. And I look around like, why did the track stop? And I'm going, you can't stop. How could you stop? But I think there was like a very important part of that show that was happening in the tracks that just got dropped. And like, we all had to do the best we could. And I looked over and I see the broken stick standing there and I'm just like, man, I'm never doing that again. Like, drum risers are shaky. Like, you have a subwoofer there and like everything's moving. There's so many moving parts. I'm like, that needs to live with a keyboardist who can stop and like figure stuff out and like let the drummer drum.
Woo! Words to live by right there. I've been preaching it for years. Don't make me sing. Don't make me play keyboard. Run loops. Just let me do my thing, man. Unless I choose to sing. How you doing? Nice to be back. It's been quite a busy 2 weeks. I was thinking about what I was going to say today. I think I'm peeking here. I'm going to turn my mic down just a touch. So 2 weeks ago when I spoke to you, we were here on the show with Lowell Campbell, and the show came out on the day of the U.S. election, which some people would have you believe is still undecided. I'm skipping a thing. I was going to say we're talking to Tyler Zarzeka today, and he came to us from Los Angeles, California, USA. Maybe I've had too much coffee. Maybe I'm just fired up, man. Maybe I got the righteous fury in me. I don't want to get too political or anything like that. But I was thinking about 2 weeks ago, I was saying we need to listen to each other, respect other people's points of view. And while I believe that's true, I was thinking about this Donald Trump character and who he reminds me of, and really it's Peter Criss, who, as you may know, was the drummer in American rock band Kiss during their most famous run in the 70s. I don't know if you've read Peter Criss's autobiography, Make Up to Break Up, but I read it a couple of years ago, and he paints a very sympathetic picture of himself where you're like, man, this guy's just trying to live his dreams. He's working so hard, and like Gene and Paul, man, they're the real villains here. You know, it really wasn't right the way they treated him. And then Peter Criss will say something about how, like, his wife wouldn't hang up the phone and it was Christmas, so he pulled his gun out and shot the TV. Or, like, he's going to ignore the fact that he's getting grossly underpaid on this final tour because, you know, it's always been his dream to play with an orchestra, and now he finally gets to do it. And, you know, we're just going to focus on that. And, man, some of those female cello players. And he goes into detail about why exactly he finds them so attractive. And it's like, dude, like, you're a repulsive man-child. You're rich and famous. You're successful by every societal measure that we seem to have. You don't care about my problems. I'm not interested in yours. Or, like, whatever you claim are your problems, you know? Shut up. You're not a victim. Anyhow. Been a busy couple weeks over here. I had a new single out. I almost forgot to mention that. If you look up Sunny Side Uppers on whatever platform you like, I suggest YouTube. New song called If All Is Lost. The video made by my friend Gavin and really kind of visually masterminded by my friend Naomi, who is my, shall we say, co-star in the video. Anyway, I'm really happy about it. Personally, I think anybody would like it because it's just good, but I'm going to let you decide. So head on over to youtube.com, type in Sunny Side Uppers If All Is Lost, and make up your own mind. So also gigs upcoming if you're in the St. John area, which is one of the few places where gigs can happen, seemingly, although people are just doing it. I'll be at the Five and Dime this week playing ska, reggae, soul, pop, original music on drums, and actually singing a couple of my own songs backed up by the band with the Exhortations. I'll be playing jazz there next Thursday with the Jazz Loyalty Project. filling in for my friend Clinton Charlton, who you can hear interviewed in season 2 of this podcast, and playing disco keyboard on the radio for a Christmas show in just under 2 weeks on the local CBC. So if you're in town, I will see you on the airwaves. For show notes, links, past episodes, check learndrums.ca. For the quick version of that, head to Learn Drums on Instagram. I've also got 31 days of drum tips there if you're a beginner, you want to learn from scratch. You can find Tyler on Instagram at @Zarzeka. All right, here we go. Enjoy.
Where are you at?
I'm on the other side of the continent, so I'm in St. John, New Brunswick, Canada.
Oh, okay.
So it's, almost 10 in the morning here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised to see that it's as bright as it is there, but maybe it's just...
it's just the fancy lighting. It's pitch black outside, don't worry, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm used to waking up early, so this isn't that bad.
Oh, right on. Good. Are you naturally a morning person, or is it your work schedule?
No, I just, which we'll probably end up talking about in the interview, but I had to find a real job in the meantime, and I just haven't been waking up early for that. So that's been tough to get used to, but I'm used to it.
Yeah, that's good. How long have you been doing that for at this point?
6 months.
Yeah. Right. That'll get you used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, we'll start at the start. We don't have a ton of time. How did you start playing drums, sir?
Ooh, good question. I started when I was later in life. I was 16 years old when I saw this drummer at school perform with this just band in the quad, and that kind of sparked something. And at that same year, I saw Blink-182 perform, and I even had bad seats to Blink-182 where I couldn't even see Travis Barker. I just heard him.
Yeah.
Like me and my father went, and we were so off to the far side. I just all I could see was Mark and Tom, but then the drums, and it was a weird time in my life where music was coming into play, and I was eager to find something new, I think, in my life, and I didn't have any natural talent by any means, and I saw this drummer doing it, and I was like, that seems cool, let's try that, and asked my dad for a kit, and he's like, maybe in a year we'll get you a kit. And I was like, oh, fine, okay. So 17 years old, I finally got a drum set and just started figuring it out, and then my friends were in bands as well, so we kind of just made little small crappy bands, and then I just flourished into realizing what drums are and the history of the drum and all that stuff, and just fell in love with it, and was knew right away, this is my career for sure.
This is the thing.
Yeah.
So what year would that have been that you saw Blink-182?
That was 2001, 2002, I believe, something like that.
Take Off Your Pants and Jacket tour? Or
they weren't promoting it, yes. Because I have a shirt from that show, and it was just their traditional old school logo with the bunny rabbit.
Yeah.
So I honestly think they were still working the cycle. Well, because 2001 was Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, so it must have been past that. Yeah. So I guess it was that. I honestly don't remember the set list at all. I just remember that was my first concert, and I just remember seeing people worship and destroy their bodies with mosh pits, and because I didn't know what a mosh pit was at that time either, and I just saw this chaos, but beautiful chaos for this band, and it just clicked. All I wanted was that in life, because when I was in high school, I was at the bottom of the food chain. I had not many friends, and I was picked on. I didn't dress cool. I wasn't a part of the cool kids club and all that stuff. So to see people with his band members get worshipped, I was like, I want to draw from that somehow, and I don't know how that's going to be, but I wanted that in my life, and I kind of just manifested that, I think.
Totally. I can relate. Certainly, I was definitely a weird kid who didn't if I didn't have that going on. I just was lucky, I guess, in the sense, although it's not cool to talk about, that there was a really strong music program in my school, particularly in junior high. So I am a little bit older than you are, but I grew up in rural Canada in the 90s. So, but Blink was definitely big where I grew up, but it would have been like Dude Ranch.
Nice.
Was the album until like probably I graduated high school the same year that the kids in American Pie did. So I'm class of 2000, right? I'm trying just recalling, but it was definitely a thing for me, man. Like I was thinking about this the other day, you know, like how did I end up where I did? And certainly a big part of it is like I was this kid who, like, at lunchtime, because I wasn't a sports guy, like, really where I grew up, like, hockey is the thing. And so, you know, you're big, if you wanted to really do something big in life, it was the NHL. And as, you know, it just never really clicked for me. So I was, you know, if I didn't have, I started playing in, you know, as many bands at school as I could, because otherwise I'd just be like wandering around by myself at lunchtime. Because also it's like the rural kids were into hockey, the city kids, although it's like technically a city, but not really, were into I don't know, whatever. Like it was like if you didn't have cable TV, the internet didn't really exist. Music was definitely it for me, and it both is like something that like connects emotionally, so it's like you feel it at a deep level, but also it's something that exactly like you say, you get to flip that where you're not like looking for I don't know if it was about like being seen in that light, but certainly it's like watching other kids, because there were drummers a couple of years older than me who was like seeing them up on stage and playing. It's like, I want to do that. Yeah.
I just wanted that extra talent. Like I wanted something else. And I feel like I was talented. I grew up doing art my whole life. And it seemed like that was just an extension of art in its own way. And I was a skateboarder and I loved skateboarding and extreme things, but I knew I was never going to be Tony Hawk. Like I could feel it in my bones. I was like, I'm not built for this. Like I hated falling, and I wasn't a good faller. So that was like a telltale sign. I was like, I'm not gonna be a good skateboarder. But yeah, music just seemed like this beautiful passion concept of having that as a career, and you know, proving my parents wrong, because the second I got a drum set, they just were like, don't play when we're home, it's loud, you suck, like in all sense of terms. They were gentle about it, but like who wouldn't want, I mean, they didn't have practice kits for me back in the day. They didn't have silent stroke drum kits and like cheap electronic kits for me to practice on. So it's like, I feel sorry for my parents, but they were like, there's no way this is going to be your thing. And they saw the band that I was in, which was a screamo hardcore emo band, and like
of course it was,
and like, they were just like, this, you think you're gonna make money this way? And it's like, maybe, like I'm gonna try. Like if you really think I can't, then that means I'm going to now for sure, to prove you wrong.
Right. Totally. And at that age too, it's like you always think you're going to be the exception anyway, no matter what anybody tells you. Like, no, these other people aren't going to be able to make any money at it, but I am.
That's exactly what I thought too.
And so it's also funny. Funny is maybe not the right word, but talking about the mosh pit. So we were like too remote. Like Blake didn't come to our town, but some friends of mine did go up to see them in Green Day on the Pop Disaster tour, and they brought a rubber dinghy to go crowd surfing in.
That's funny.
Yeah. Anyway, that's that. So your first band was a screamo band. What were you called?
We were called Second Session.
Nice. Why?
My mom came up with that name because prior to that, I was in a smaller band that all of these obviously were comprised of friends. But the first one was Cardboard Cutout, because there just happened to be like one of those old school like displays for some, you know, video game place or whatever, where there's a cardboard cutout of somebody. And that was in the room when we were trying to think of a name. So it was Cardboard Cutout. That didn't work out after maybe a month of trying it. And then second band, and my mom just chimed in for some reason, Second Session, and it worked. I don't know how, it didn't make sense, but like I started drawing signs and logos for it, and I created this cool little S symbol that I ended up tattooing on my body many, many years later. But it's just, it was purely out of fun. We were friends. We were trying the best we could. We lasted maybe 2 years. And then it was right off to music school for me after that.
Cardboard Cutout sounds like a pop punk band, was it?
It was a pop punk band, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we got a new singer, kept some of the old members, and that's second session, and it was definitely more screamo, hard rock band kind of thing. It was fun.
Sure.
Didn't do double pedal, but I
this is just about to ask.
No, I hit really hard though. That was the only thing I was good at, was like, oh, I can just hit really hard and people think I'm good. Okay, cool. I'm going that route.
Right. Well, I remember seeing the first time I saw somebody do the just like you know, with the double pedal, and I had no idea how he was doing it. It's like, how's that guy playing so fast and it's uninterrupted? Yeah. Then you learn it's like actually not that hard.
Yeah.
So okay, so from there you went to, so you grew up in Sacramento?
Yeah, Sacramento was where I was raised. Born in California, but Sacramento was later in life. I think between the age of 9 to 18. And then when my dad started realizing that I wasn't going to give up on music as an option, he gave me two choices. He was like, there's Berkeley in Boston, and there's this place called Musicians Institute in Hollywood, California. And Hollywood was a 7-hour drive, and Berkeley was a 7-hour flight. And we didn't have a lot of money, so it just made sense to go to Musicians Institute. But it was honestly one of the best decisions I made to this day. That school did everything for me. I was such a bad drummer prior to that school. I was literally awful, worse than the school, I always say. And people disagree with me, but I really think I was like the kid that was like, I didn't understand what a rack tom was. I didn't know what a double stroke was. Like, I was brand new to this instrument, because when I started music school, I'd only been drumming for 3 years. Everyone there was like, been drumming since I was 2. I've been drumming since I was 7. I've been in bands for 5 years, and it's like, I know nothing about what
you're like. I'm here to learn.
Yeah, I'm here to learn. Yeah, and I had to. I buckled down so hard. I saw everyone else's work ethic, and it's weird because in high school I wasn't that type of a student. I wasn't. I did really, really bad in high school. I just barely skirted by. I was just terrible at taking tests, but when it came to this school and I knew that my career was on the line and I had something to prove to my family, to myself, that I just buckled down, and I would wake up early. I mean, I had the young stamina of a teenager going into his 20s. I wasn't even, I was still 19 years old at that time. And I would just wake up super early and I would practice my ass off before school, before class, and then do mediocre in class, and then practice after, go to a job, and then repeat for 2 years. Basically, I did that, and it just, zoomed me into professionalism, I guess.
Yeah, good for you, man. Was it a 2-year program?
It was a 2-year program, yeah, for my associates in music. And,
right.
Yeah, and you could do a 4-year for your master's, but it didn't make sense. The 2 years was plenty. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And depending what you're looking to get out of it. I knew a guy who went to Musicians Institute, but for me, largely it was something that I knew about from guitar magazines. And so they would have a 2-page ad. And I remember looking at it as a teenager and thinking, like, that seemed like the coolest school ever. But when it came time, it's a similar kind of thing. We're on the East Coast, so it's like, didn't really ever seem like a true option,
Really? Gotcha.
Although I do know a guitar player who did go there.
Yeah, the school is very multicultural. I mean, people flew from Korea, Japan, China, and just came, lived in that school, did the thing, and then went back home, and just kind of honed their craft and took it back to where they were from. And it was cool. I'd never seen so many different types of people and drummers, and I'd never heard of a gospel drummer. And like my first day, I heard a gospel drummer, and I was just like, "Oh shit! Like this is this is how you're supposed to play the drums." Like I'm 30 years from being where they are right now. Like they have.
That's what I got to do.
Man, I know.
But so okay, you would get up and practice first thing in the morning. Like how a typical session? How long would you go for? And I'm gonna stop myself there.
Okay. It depends. I mean. This was coming up on 15 years ago now. I feel like what I did was I laid out everything that my teachers had me to do for homework, and then everything I needed to do to get up to that point. And so I would all my teachers just would always promote slow and steady, just slow, the slowest tempo, 40 BPM, like that's your new friend. Nothing above that. They could see that I was nowhere ready for anything. And like, I had to really backtrack and just be like, okay, why am I not understanding some of these concepts and stuff like that? So did I feel like I would be in there honestly from 4 hours, 5 hours in the morning before a 10 o'clock class. And because I knew that I had my lab available, we had to share labs with other students. So I knew that time was prime. Like no kid wanted to wake up that early to go drum. So I was like, I'm in, put me in, and I was undisturbed. I could be there all morning, have a small breakfast and just go for it. And then after class, I'd do another few hours. And then you're drumming all day too, from 10 to 6. In multiple genres of learning classes, jazz and Latin and rock and studio drumming and all these things. And I was a sponge ready to absorb it all. It was cool. It was a good time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are you somebody who is naturally like disciplined and methodical in that way of like, and the reason I ask is because I kind of needed to be, I went to music school out here, but I needed somebody to sit me down and be like, no, you need to like practice this for this amount of time. And, like set specific goals, tempos, work on this thing. Because I would kind of like sit down with a bunch of material and just be like, I don't know, I do this for a while and I don't know if it's any good. And like, I really needed to be directed. Was that something that you figured out on your own?
Yeah. It was kind of both. We had a class called How to Practice to help you realize what you were doing and if you were doing it wrong. Like, how did it feel in the practice, before the practice, after the practice? And I am very detail oriented when it comes to anything like that. So I would make lists and I would I would check them off. Like, did I do that well? Where am I at? I would make graphs. I would go, okay, cool. Like 40 BPM, 50 BPM. Like I did it for an hour long. Like, and I would just time it out. Like I felt like, I don't know where that came from. I don't know if it's built in from my family, because my dad's kind of like that too. He's an architect, and like lists and notes and everything were always a big part growing up for me. And like, I just kind of took that to drums, and I think it helped. I really do. And I kind of tell that to random, the students that I do occasionally have, I'll kind of give that advice to, of just like, whatever works for you. If you're not a list maker, find whatever that is. I don't know what that option could be, but there's something out there always for anybody. And we have the future. You can dictate to your phone, you can do whatever you want. So I just loved the pen and paper feeling of it. And that also helped me learn how to read and write as well too. Just constantly writing quarter notes and quarter note rests and all that stuff.
Yeah. I think the note taking and measuring is huge. And, thinking back to my own time, like I had a friend who was really organized in that sense, and he also was like a dude who showed up and was already amazing, and he, like one of the best players in the school. And like I think those two things have to be connected, because it also is like, how do you know if you're improving if you don't do that? And so that's what it was, certainly for me. But the being shown how to practice is huge. Because it also, I think it impacts your confidence, because you need to know that you're making gains. And the other thing that I think, like, you were there 2 years, like, would you say that you made, I don't know, if you could, I'm not necessarily looking for a percentage, but in terms of like the gains that you made in those 2 years versus the, let's say, 3 years before.
I honestly feel like I did anywhere from 7 to 10 years in 2 years. Like I gained the life lessons of 10 years of being a musician, just from all the drummers that we had. Like a lot of my teachers were students of Berklee, and they'd gone on to do great things. And then now in their older years, they would come back and teach, and just all that coming at me from the same time. Like it honestly feels like I went from zero to something. I could like hold a band. I could hold tempos well. I could play almost anything decently. I wasn't maybe proficient at everything, but I had Latin in me finally. Like, and we would just sit and listen to Latin music and enjoy it, and like just really just make the drum a part of like my soul. And that was really cool. So yeah, I want to say 7 to 10 years gainage for sure.
Yeah. What's the situation there? Is it like smoky air, all of that?
Yeah, the sun kind of glows in a weird orange way in the mornings. It's not as bad as it was 2 weeks ago, but air quality is on par with what it normally is for LA. Right. It's still moderate. Just whether it's smog mixed with smoke, we're not sure. But
yeah,
the heat is just not helping anything for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. Have you been able to like leave the house?
Yeah, our lockdown has kind of gotten lifted. It's been lifted now for a few months now. You could finally get a haircut as of 2 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a fresh cut.
A legal haircut you can get. I was definitely going to a salon where they were doing speakeasy haircuts, and I'm not going to say their name, but it was the only option. And I just don't look good when my hair's all grown out. I'm just like, I needed a haircut, and we were safe about it. I wore a mask. You wore a mask. You wore a face shield. You wore gloves. Like, we treated it like it was very serious. But I definitely saw him while it was illegal.
Yeah, I kind of let it grow out for a while. I mean, it was winter here too. So whatever, but it drives me crazy when it grows long on the side. So I mean, I'm like kind of crazy looking right now, but I have a mullet as a result.
Nice.
And my wife started giving me haircuts just because, it's like whatever. I'll wear a hat or I'll go somewhere if need be. But it just didn't really matter.
Well, I had work to do, and I had to be on camera for some things, and I couldn't look as shaggy as I was. I was just like, I gotta at least try. And if I did this at home, it would not be good.
Yeah.
For myself, yeah.
You had to be on camera. What was going on?
I was doing a few things. The first one I did while we were kind of just coming out of quarantine was a live stream for this actress named Dove Cameron. She has a singing career as well and was promoting 3 songs. And so got to do that, which is really cool. I never met her, but I performed with her in the same kind of aspect of a live stream, I guess you could say.
Were you, how does that work? Were you in your own place, or were you like in a studio and distanced?
Yeah, the keyboardist was at his home studio. I ended up using Matt McGuire's studio from the Chainsmokers, and she was in her studio.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to be safe. So we kept it as safe as we possibly could,
yeah, of course. Yeah. And did you track things separately?
We did, yeah.
Yeah. The question, it's always the lag. I'm always interested in that.
Well, you could have, look at us right now. Like, I have decent internet, and it's 6 a.m. No one should be on internet right now in my region, and yet we're dropping calls. So it's you'd have to have NASA's Wi-Fi, and it would still be off. And you would either all have to be in the same facility recording, whether you're in separate rooms, but we just couldn't work it out that way. So we had to do it completely separate.
Yeah, that's cool though.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump back. So, all right, you went to Musicians Institute, made 7 to 10 years worth of gains in 2 years, and then you were spit out into the world.
Yeah, I was spit out. 2007 was when I was released into the wild.
Yeah. And what happened then?
I got a gig and a tour right away. While I was still in school and working a job, I started playing for just local things for free. Singer-songwriter stuff, 2-song evening things, or, cover setlist bands, and just doing whatever I could. But in 2007, there was a flyer nailed to the wall, just like, you would see back in the day. Nothing was digital for us. And I pulled the phone number off of it, called it, signed up for this audition for this pop singer, and her name was Maren, Maren at the time, and I got the gig, and we did a few shows in LA. But that same year, I did my first tour, which was the Armed Forces tour, which is kind of a tour that provides music for our military overseas.
Yeah, like the USO shows?
Just like the USO, yeah. So it's a tier kind of off of the USO tour called Armed Forces. But that was my first tour, and it was the Pacific Rim tour. And so we started in Alaska, went to Hawaii, Japan, Singapore, Philippines, and then we went to a military island called Diego Garcia in the middle of the Indian Ocean.
Wild.
Yeah, that was my first tour.
For a first tour?
We had to lug the drum set through every airport.
Oh my God.
And looking back now, where it's like you barely bring a snare drum and cymbals, you know, now on tour, and everything's backlined. Whoever was running the show at that time did not understand what they were getting into, but we had to lug an entire drum kit with hardware, and my stupid self brought 2 floor toms for no reason. I just was like, I want 2 floor toms. I think it'll look cool, and we do just that extra piece was like,
it is more fun.
Not to carry around international airports for 4 weeks. That was awful. But
oh my God.
What a great experience, you know. That was my first run.
Yeah, it's not like they have backline companies or kits waiting around. But also, how do you, like, you can't carry an entire drum kit yourself through an airport?
Oh, everyone had to step in. We had a manager, singer, 2 dancers, and 3 band members, including myself. So, you know, that was my first realization of what all hands on deck means, and like what I can really benefit, and how it, you know, it can suck, but it boosts morale when everyone's helping out. Even the dancers carried stuff that wasn't theirs. You know, they had a ton of luggage for wardrobe changes and stuff, and we all had to carry just what was required to, you know, and everyone was so eager and happy and stoked to be on that tour. And it was a great feeling, and meeting troops and being on military bases in foreign lands. Like, that was not what I expected to be my first tour. Like, I thought my first tour was going to be in a band in a van, just trekking it through the United States. And then it ended up being, you know, completely the opposite.
Wild. Yeah. I mean, that's the sort of the vision, or the archetype, let's say. Mm-hmm. Cool. So how long did that last?
It was just a month.
Yeah.
Just a month. And I was working at Best Buy at the time, which is a retail chain, which I think
we have it here.
Yeah. And I had to take off 2 weeks of work, or what was it? No, sorry, 4 weeks of work. And it was the first time I got to tell somebody I was like, I'm going on tour.
Yeah.
And to get that experience. And funny enough, it was random, because I worked at the Hollywood Best Buy on Santa Monica and Fountain, which is the celebrity Best Buy. Mm-hmm. So any celebrity coming down from the Hollywood Hills, this is the first one they would go to when you had to buy a DVD back in the day. When a CD came out, like all these options that nobody does anymore. But so Paris Hilton would come in. I met Stevie Wonder when I worked at Best Buy. And the month that I was gone, Blink-182, when he was in Plus 44, was doing a thing at our store, like a performance. And it was the week that I was gone, I believe. So, and I was like pissed off, but I was like, it's meant to be. Like, I have to be on tour, and Travis Barker's going to be in my store. So my colleagues actually got sticks signed for me by him.
What was he doing at Best Buy?
I think it was just some sort of thing with if it wasn't with Plus 44, then it was with Blink, or he was doing his own little thing. I'm not sure what it was. Yeah. But I still have the sticks. And the funniest thing was my coworkers forgot my name, and they thought my name was Travis. So he signed it to Travis from Travis.
Yeah, like, his name's Travis. He's gonna love this.
When I got back, they're like, "Oh, my bad." And I was just like, "What? Like, what am I supposed to do with these?" It's literally like, and I couldn't scratch it off. And so, like, I have a pair of drumsticks for somebody named Travis by Travis.
Yeah, man, I have a Bernard Purdy DVD that's made out to Ron, because he just misheard my name.
Oh my gosh,
that's so funny. They didn't care that you were taking a month off. Were they used to it?
I don't know. Everyone there at that store was, they wanted to be an actress.
Yeah, they got it.
Director for sure. So they understood. I had my job when I came back, which was nice.
Yeah. Well, I would think that environment too. Like, if you're good at your job, they can use you around, and I'm sure they're used to turnover.
Well, I think I loved it at the time, even though I knew that my life wasn't going to be Best Buy. I was selling cell phones, I was selling iPods, and like learning about digital media and music that I wasn't really accustomed to. So I had to read up and learn about MP3s and how all this stuff worked, and it kind of helped open my eyes to maybe the future.
Yeah, I think too, like that kind of like your perspective can play such a big part of what a job like that can be for you. Like, because you could have been like, man, I want to be a fucking drummer. Like, well, what am I doing working here? Or you can be like, this is a part of the industry that I work in. I know when we moved to town here a couple of years ago, I just like, my wife had a job and I was kind of like, I had quit a job and was just like gigging around Halifax where we were living, but I didn't really have a thing. It was an opportunity for her. And I was like, whatever. We'll move. My band had broken up. I was like living there because I was in a band, and that really wasn't the case anymore. So anyway, I wound up working at Sunrise Records, which is Canadian chain, but they bought, when HMV closed in Canada a few years ago, Sunrise Records bought a bunch of the old locations. So it was really kind of a head scratcher. Like, they opened in probably 2018 in most places in Canada. They were an Ontario chain before that. But, working there, it was really interesting for me, kind of seeing the back end of how they operate. So a big part of how they, maybe I shouldn't be. No, I think this is public knowledge. But it's like they got a partnership with Universal, which helped them to stock their stores. And, it's a certain mix of like music, DVDs, merch, paraphernalia, whatever. But, just kind of understanding like, this is why we feature these artists all the time, because we have a partnership with their label, and so like when something goes on sale or it's at the like Christmas special, we're featuring a different album every day, and then you start to see those same album covers pop up on iTunes, and so for me it was a really interesting look, and also just like how the business model of physical music works. It was 2018. No, it would have been like 2016 when they opened. It was 2018 when I worked there. Anyhow, so you did that tour. Has it been all? I know you got to like run before too long, so I don't even watch the clock.
I got time. I'm available if you are. Yeah, it's up to you.
Okay, cool. So you got back from that tour. What year would that have been?
That finished the same year. Yeah, so 2007. And I came back, with a sense of pride and accomplishment and eagerness to only want to do that. That was the tough part, was the understanding what it feels like to come off tour and go back to a normal 9-to-5 job. That was a quick learning lesson for me, and it sucked because when I did go back, it kind of ruined the beautiful image I had of Best Buy. I was like, I don't want to wear this uniform anymore. I want to wear what I want to wear on stage. I want to play drums. Like, that was way too much fun. Like, how can I do more of that? I didn't know. I didn't know the answers. Like, I just graduated this school. I just did one tour. And so I think I have this great resume. And I'm like, I have all this. And then but I have nothing. I have just this little Post-it note of a resume. And so I didn't know what to do. And it was actually a crazy pivotal point in my life where I had this, however you want to call it, I had a vision of doing something more. And I literally woke up one day and went to Best Buy and was like, here's my 2-week notice. I'm so sorry. And with nothing left in me. And to anyone listening who's young and aspiring, like, that's not the best thing you should do. And listen to, Papa Tyler, just always have a backup plan. And I didn't. But what happened with that was that next day, I got a call from somebody who I met at Musicians Institute, and he called me up saying, "Hey, I'm moving positions at my job, and would you be interested in it?" And the job was working at a music backline rehearsal company in Burbank, and the facility was called Center Staging. And I was like, I don't know anything about drum tuning. Like, they didn't mention that whatsoever in school, but if you guys train on site, like, I'd be more than interested in it. And I went and interviewed that same day, got the job the next day, and then got a new job working in, technically, quote unquote, the music industry. But that literally opened up a door to an entire universe
Yeah.
light that I did not know existed, which was music production, live music production.
Yep.
It was really, really cool time in my life.
So what would you have been doing working for that company?
So my job was just to work in the shop. We had literally, it seemed like it was probably about 4,000 square feet of just drum sets stacked. Every hardware you can imagine, every cymbal from every company. We had every drum head from every company, Aquarian, Evans, Remo. We had every cymbal company. And when an order would come through for somebody rehearsing, we would just pull the gear that they requested per their writer. So if Janet Jackson needed a DW kit, and they had their writer to their sizes, to the drum head, to the cymbals, we would order that stuff, or we would pull it off our shelves, make a pull sheet, set it up in the studio for them. They would rehearse, and we'd pull it back, clean it, put it back on the shelf, and then do multiple orders. And we would, each person, and there was multiple employees, like I alone would do 5 drum sets a day.
Yeah.
And you were just prepping and tuning, undrilling heads, putting heads on, like tune quickly. And the lesson I got from tuning was literally just do it as quick as you can, make it sound as good as you can, and send it off. Like, you don't have time to tap tune. There's no time for that. Like, just send it out, and it has to be playable immediately. And it was a whirlwind. That opened up also a new door to drums. I was like, oh, like, yes, there is like a ton more companies out there. Like, I didn't know what a Yamaha Birch kit sounded like. I didn't know what a Paiste cymbal sounded like. And learning what other players liked and stuff like that, it just was this whole thing. And I was just blown away by music production and getting to work in a studio. And I ended up working there for about 4 or 5 years up until 2011. Yeah.
What happened in 2011?
Well, in between then, while I was working there, the bad part about the job was it was minimum wage at the time, and I could not survive off of what I was getting paid. I was making exactly what my rent was, and I could not, like, it was... you can't live. And I was just like, crap, like, you had to do other gigs in order to eat, and dude, it was a real struggle. And I would see these other bands come in and crew members come in who did exactly what I did, but they were on tour. They would come in on the tour bus, and they would come off, and they were like, yeah, I'm the drum tech for, so-and-so Motley Crue. And when I started finding out what they were making per week, I was like blown away. But so I would see drum techs come in that were working for, bands like Motley Crue, and to find out what they were making versus what I was making, light bulb hit on. I was like, I have to go on tour. And I had to kind of take back and realize I'm not drumming, but I'm still working for bands and stuff like that. So that it made me happy. And I loved working for drums, and I loved tuning drums and all that stuff. So I just started putting feelers out for anybody want a drum tech. Yeah. Because sometimes you would get pulled from our job to go on tour. And I just kept my ears open, smiled all the time. I was like, hey, if you guys ever need anybody, I'm your guy. And it worked. And I ended up getting my first drum tech job, which was with the band Hanson.
Really?
Yeah. So I was drum tech for Zach, and then I was also keyboard guitar tech for their guitarist at the time, because they also had a backing band as well.
Right. They're supposed to be quite a good live band.
Dude, they're amazing. Yeah. When I got the job, I was like, wait, Bop? Like, whatever.
Yeah, okay, right, because that's what everybody knows.
Yeah, and then I remember the first show, they just started jamming, and they just were having fun. They weren't playing their songs. They just, like, Isaac was playing something on guitar, and then Zach would just play, and I was like, oh, like, you guys are talented. Like, I thought they would have grown up being terrible. Like, it could go either way when you grow up that young, being in a band.
Of course.
They had this beautiful jam band, and I would enjoy each show that I worked on. And then after I even worked for them, I would hit up Zach and be like, dude, I want to come to the show. Like, I had such a good time. I fell in love with their songs. Their fan base was incredible. Like, it really just opened my eyes to that side of the world. And it made me happy. I was like, oh, cool. Like, I did a good job. He liked everything I did. I showed up on time, and I got paid well. Yeah. And, and then I finished that tour and went back to my center staging job at minimum wage. And I was like, damn, like, here we are again. This cycle.
Stuck in the warehouse.
So I really was like, I knew that it was either going to be drumming or drum teching, and I had to choose one of those options, but it was whatever came first in my mind.
And what came first?
I did have a drum gig for quite some time. It must have been, I want to say 2008 to 2009. I was with this pop singer, rock pop singer. Her name was Leslie Roy, and
I can see the drum head in the background.
There she is. Where is she? Right there. Yeah. That's a 24-inch drum head that I had with her, and
nice.
That was cool. That was my first time being on a tour bus. Was with her, and that was my first time feeling like a quote unquote band member, rock star, whatever you wanted to. Like, I was kind of a part of that band, but it was hers. It was her band, and we had a cool backing band, and the guitarist at the time was my good friend Dave Emmerman, who ended up moving on to Avril Lavigne and Goldfinger, and so it was a cool time, and I got to be on a bus, and we were playing cool shows, opening for a bunch of cool bands that were on the radio at the time, and that was great. But that ended just because maybe her songs weren't doing well, or there was no more funding from her record company at the time. So I was just kind of at a loss. And this was 2009, and I, again, getting dumped off a tour, going back to my 9-to-5 job. But that 9-to-5 job didn't exist when I came back. The company actually went bankrupt. And
how?
It was a much longer story. And if anybody knows Center Staging, they know that they invested into a company that was trying to do something virtual back in the day to kind of give an audience member a perspective of what it's like to be in rehearsals. And they had this thing called rehearsals.com. It ended up flopping, taking the company under with it. And they fired, most of their staff. And I'm sitting there like, crap, now what do I do? And that was probably the low point of my musical career and of my life. I was really depressed, and I had no money. I had $4 in my bank account, and I had to get out of an apartment that I was living in. And it was kind of like the movie picturesque version of what I thought it was going to be. Like, I slept in my car some nights and sleeping on people's couches and floors, and just doing anything I could to not move back home. If I moved back home, I knew I would give up.
Right, sure, because then you feel like I have officially failed.
Yes, and
like mom and dad were right.
Myself, mom and dad were right, and I was like, "What? Something has to happen." And and another, not a vision this time, but just a blessing came to me. And Aaron Spears was working with Usher at Center Staging, and their drum tech got burnt out after a few years, and so he literally went to the drum department, was like, "Hey, any of your boys want to do a drum tech gig for me overseas in Asia with Usher for a month?" And I was just like, I would love to. Like, please, like, take me with you. And he did. And that was the first time working for A-level artists. From Hanson to Usher, that was a really big leap. And I learned so much on that one run, how to be quick and how to be efficient and how to be a team player, and working with people who had been in the industry for 15 years, 20 years at that point, if not longer. And just seeing how a band like that works and stuff. So the first tour I did with Usher was 2010, which was, just a crazy, crazy tour for sure. Yeah.
Well, I would think too, just like working with a crew that has, been doing that at that long and is at that level. The one experience that I've had with that was I did Teardown for Paul McCartney when he played an outdoor concert in Halifax. Yeah. And it was for me just like a one-off gig I picked up, but what I was really struck by was I had done different things like that, and people are snapping at each other, especially this thing, because the show's over and then we're tearing down all night. But these guys were professional, upbeat, everything is quick, it's organized, and it made as like a grunt worker, it made such a difference.
I mean, you see the machine working, and that's my favorite part about being on tour as a crew member, because even being in the band, you really don't see it sometimes, what the crew has to go through, the early lobby calls, and then, the early setup times, and you're first one on, last one out. It's nice to see that all work as this like gelled form of a creature. It's really cool and magical almost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I certainly have been in those like situations where you don't feel appreciated. So that was I mean, for me, really eye-opening. So that's cool. So you were on tour in Asia with Usher. How long were you out for?
That was just a 30-day run.
Right.
And then, you know, if anything else came, I would get the call. And I ended up not getting the call for the next tour. And it wasn't anything I did wrong. The production manager didn't know me.
Yeah.
And he had his guy. And so I just got bumped, which is natural, you know. And my rapport with Aaron was, you know, only 30 days long. So I didn't really have, you know, the 10-year relationship that I do with him now. So he had no pull for me. And I don't know if he even wanted me at that time. So they had his drum tech come out, and then apparently that drum tech did not work. And so I had to fly out immediately to go start a tour in London with them. And that tour lasted 2 years. Yeah.
Wild.
It was basically nonstop for 2 years. And I think we did 40 countries in less than 1 year.
That was my question. It was like, just the wheels are turning in my head. It's kind of like, where did you go? Everywhere?
We went everywhere. Yeah, we did 6 continents in at least 40 countries for sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And like just like huge crowds all over.
Yeah, they were all arenas. The smallest show I ever did with Usher was Michael Jordan's birthday party.
Yeah,
that was the smallest show I've ever done with him. Yeah, everything else was pretty much sold out. You know, 30,000 to 60,000.
Yeah.
And the biggest show I've ever seen, Wembley Arena, or not arena, sorry, Wembley Stadium.
Yeah.
The 60,000 or what is it, 80,000 people? That one, Usher did with that, and I got to sound check at that.
Wild.
On Aaron's kit, and that, I've never heard such delay and decay of a drum. You know, every drum was just 10 minutes long, just one rack tom, boom, just forever. And that was such a cool experience to be able to do that for Aaron.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So you have been, you say you have a 10-year relationship. Does that mean you've been working with him that long?
Yeah, so I just did about 4 weeks ago the iHeart Radio Performance Festival, quote unquote live stream festival. I did that with Usher. I got a call back for that. So last gig I did with Ush was 2014. So it's been a long time since I've seen the crew, and they now have a new drummer. Jamal Moore is the drummer, and some of the band members are the same, but some were new as well. And it was just nice to see some of my old faces for sure. And,
I bet.
Yeah, but so technically it's been 2010 to 2020.
Yeah.
Cool,
man.
Really cool.
So I know you're. I cut myself off before I say the same. I was going to say resume, but I haven't seen your resume. But your bio lists quite a few. What's that? Yeah.
Resumes,
Lists quite a few artists. So after you got back from that tour, have you just been kind of like bouncing around? So part of what you're describing, it's like the good version of the gig economy, where it's like you may not necessarily know what's coming, but it seems like there's enough floating around. Or do you feel like you have job security, I guess is what I'm asking?
No.
Yeah.
Not at all. But I did know that if I showed up on time, if I was sober during my job, and if I was just personable, if I was easy to live with on a tour bus, I knew those simple 3 things would get me more work.
Yeah.
And obviously doing a good job, that was very important too. So I'm going to pause just because you're frozen again.
For sure.
If you can hear me, sorry about that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it was just those 3 things that helped kind of maybe solidify that I could have more future work. But work seemed to come as a drum tech a lot easier than drumming. Right after Usher was going to go film a movie, and I knew it was going to slow down, so I started putting the feelers out, and me and Aaron ended up moving on to American Idol tour. We did that for a bit, and then I ended up doing that again with Gordon Campbell the year after, and meeting new crew members, new production staff, and just building more relationships, kind of making the spectrum of my career wider. And ended up doing Demi Lovato after that, and I worked for her for 2 years as full band backline tech, drums, guitar, keys, everything.
You were doing all of it?
I was doing all of it. I did all of it for Usher for 1 week. I remember I did it all for a bunch of fly dates, and I was like, I need help. I need a second guy. Like, I can't do a DJ, percussionist, keyboardist, bassist, guitar player, and then poor Aaron. I would have to leave him. I was like, here's a spare snare and a spare pedal. Like, figure it out. Like, I have 5 other band members I got to take care of.
And is it the kind of thing where it's like, that's the thing that I know I can handle, so I'll leave that for last?
That's what it was, yeah. And I'd never, done a guitar teching and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of learning on the spot. And thankfully, when we had guitar techs come in, I had great mentors. A good buddy of mine, Terry Staley, we worked together on Usher, and he taught me a lot. And Daniel Fawcett, he taught me a lot too about just guitar teching, bass teching, how to intonate, how to fix a pot, how to just change strings and multiple weird tunings, and like, what do guitar players and bass players really need to do their show. That was a big lesson for me. And I ended up buying a guitar and a bass just so I could take them apart and put it back together and figure it out, which is that method, I guess, learning I could pull from, I guess, from drumming. But I kept getting drum tech gigs all the time. And I think after Demi Lovato was really when I wanted to stop and get back into music.
Mm-hmm. Get back into playing. So who did you end up playing with?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Which wasn't easy. I remember Demi was gearing up to do another tour, and I had a small band that I was playing with when I was home every weekend or whatever. I was playing with a local band, but that didn't seem to be going anywhere. But a good friend of mine reached out and was like, "Hey, I got an audition for you for this pop singer from Texas. She wants to go on tour. Do you want it?" And I was like, "Of course I want it." He's like, "Well, if you want it, you got to quit Demi." He literally told me that. He knew I was working for Demi, and he's like, you gotta focus. He's like, it seems like you're shifting more towards that way. And I, at that time, wasn't even 30 yet. I was still probably just late 20s. And I was like, you know what? I should do this now before I'm 40. Like,
yeah, right. Before you actually just need the money and it's not really an option.
Yeah, like do it while I'm still young and eager to play whatever's needed and do small tours and just, and just give it a shot again. And so I did. I wrote this long letter to my production manager for Demi, and I felt bad because I really loved the camp I was with. I loved the crew. I was treated so well, and the pay was great, and even Demi was great. Like, everyone was just great. I got to watch this amazing drummer. The drummer for Demi at the time was Mike Reed. He's now Janet Jackson's drummer. And just to watch him every night, and then even Aaron every night. It was just like I got paid to enjoy that. It was weird, and even to enjoy the shows, to see all those shows were just mind-boggling. So I had to quit. I knew that was coming, and so I did. I wrote this long letter and I apologized. And I remember my production manager calling me, and he's like, I hope I see you again, and I hope you're on a drum set, but chances are you'll probably be back. And I was like, you're probably right, but we'll see.
Right.
Yeah. And funny enough, literally, it must have been 3 or 4 years after that, I was opening on a Jingle Ball show I was playing with Charlie Puth, and Demi was on right after us. And the entire production team and Demi came out to watch me play with Charlie.
Amazing.
Which was just like, it was just one of those other good feelings. Like, I made my parents proud. And my road family, my production team, like I made them proud, which was really, really cool. And like, I feel like I always utilize some sort of that to help me grow as a musician and as a player.
I was just going to ask, is like, would that have spurred you on hearing that? Like now I got to prove this guy wrong.
Yeah. And it didn't at that time. Yeah, of course. And I mean, I took that with a grain of sand, and I was like, okay, like maybe you're right, maybe you're not. And I don't take offense to doing tech gigs. I love doing tech gigs. I love working for bands. And so I would never say no. If I was not on tour drumming, I would say yes to a tech gig for sure. But it was just getting to play with, on stage with her. That was really, really nice.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, because the alternative too is like, you could be working at Home Depot or something, which, I mean, those are good careers. My sister worked there and she liked it, but you are still working in the industry. And I think that, especially in a career that's, I mean, obviously as unstable as this one, it's worth appreciating that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
So you got to run?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. Cool.
If you get the time, you probably have to splice it or however you want to do it. But yeah,
It's fine. I always have to splice it. It's all good. So how did you end up playing with Charlie Puth?
So that one act of defiance, however you quote unquote defiance, quoting Demi Lovato and playing for an artist who I'd never heard of before. I did a good job on that tour. I showed up on time. I played what the music director wanted me to play, and I did a good job. Tour ended. Then I got an audition after that for another duo group, this girl duo group called Siren XX, and got that gig, got that tour, and did that as well. And I was at that point where I was like, man, where do I go from this? I can keep doing small acts like this, but I miss the bigger paycheck, and I miss working with class act people. Like the people I was touring with, some were experienced, but there was a lot of new people. And so I had to shift that mentality from showing up with, 11 tour buses and 12 semis with an Usher tour with crews that have, experience that spans my life versus going back to a single bus tour and trailer with people who had never toured before.
Yeah.
And helping them, showing them the way, like trying to be that guy that's like, okay, like I've done it like this before, but if this is how we have to do it, just, always trying to be a team player. But I wanted more. I was like, I needed more than just these smaller gigs.
Sure.
But that same music director who I did good for the last 2 gigs threw me the Charlie Puth gig. And that one wasn't an audition. That was just show up, and if you suck, you don't get it. And if you're good, you get it.
What, if you suck at a rehearsal?
We did a little jam. We had a rehearsal, so we had to learn 3 songs. We had to learn See You Again and One Call Away and something else. Suffer, I think, it was a 6/8 song. And it was kind of like, let's jam. He'll play some stuff on piano. You vibe, and we'll play some songs. And if he likes you, you're in. And management's sitting there staring at me, staring at the band members like, okay, like, are these the guys? Charlie had never had a band at that time. So we were his first band.
Really? Yeah, he's quite a serious musician, right?
He really is. To this day, I think he's one of the most talented musicians I've worked for. He has perfect pitch, which I think he considers a curse.
Oh, I'm sure.
Has a tone, and like my toothbrush is, a note flat.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, if your tom is ringing at a thing that's like, because I mean, maybe you're better at it than I am, but it's like
my drum sounded great. He was happy.
Yeah. So I heard an interview with him, and he was saying that like auto-tune taught him to sing, or that's how he learned to sing. Like in tune was like he would use that to train him on like notes and intervals or whatever, like train his voice.
Cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah, because he was. Yeah, I feel like he's a prodigy. Yeah, he went to Berkeley as well, and he's an amazing piano player.
Yeah.
He would just play Mozart and stuff just for fun. It was so beautiful. He's such a talented dude, and. But yeah, it seems like he was smart in training his voice. He never needed autotune. I think we had autotune for our shows, but he never used it.
Yeah.
It was just there in case he was sick one day. But the dude shredded. He loved Billy Joel, and he admired him, and that kind of showed in his playing, and that was it was cool. He was such a cool kid to work for sure.
Yeah.
And that was it's good.
Cool. That's sweet. Well, it was funny. Like just hearing that, it kind of struck me because the knock on autotune, which I don't know if people still believe this, but it's like, well, it's for people who can't sing. So it's funny to hear it in reverse.
Yeah.
Where it's like, no, actually, it's a tool because I had practiced tuning my voice to it. Cool.
A drummer's using a metronome, we're using that robot's keeping time, and you follow that robot. That's just like a singer following autotune, and it's just for those hiccups that check you back into the grid, keeping you in time or keeping your voice in check. So I don't think there's anything wrong with a helpful autotune. Yeah.
Oh no, and I mean now it's like I also heard a Pharrell interview where he's like, I'll just put autotune on it because that's what music sounds like now. It's not about the singer's performance at all. It's just that is what people expect to hear.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah, cool. So how long were you with him for?
I was with him for 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, did a pseudo world tour. We went to Asia. We never went to South America or Africa, but a lot of Europe, a lot of America, a lot of TV shows, promos, festivals, early morning radios, Cajon performance radios for BBC, and just a bunch of stuff. Man, that was an exhausting 2 years, but it was fun. Like, I don't regret a single second of it. We had such a good time, and I feel like the band that we had was solid. It was really, really good. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what came next? Let's say that.
Well, spoiler alert for people who don't know, I ended up getting fired from that gig.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, but for not doing anything wrong. The whole band got let go. The band, we were solid. We did the best we could, and we never heard complaints, and no one ever asked us to change. But it was just one of those things where Charlie wanted a different band. He wanted to be next level.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him for that. And it was just a kind of, the only shitty part was it was a bad timing. We were literally gearing up for tour, and now I know in hindsight they were already training another band for this tour while we were in rehearsals. And then they were kind of like, yep, this is the better band. How much they charge? Like, doesn't matter. Hire that band. And then I got a phone call from a woman I'd never met before saying, thank you, your services are no longer required. And then I was like, okay, who's replacing me? And she's like, this guy named Tony Royster Jr.
Oh,
I was like,
yeah.
Oh, that's okay. Like, I feel good about that.
Yeah. I don't feel like I have to. Yeah, right. It's not like, yeah.
It wasn't just some, like his best friend from back home who barely can play a beat, like,
yeah.
And I see that, like, why would you not want Tony Royster in your band? So it is what it is. But that happening, I ended up getting 2 weeks later a call for this artist who I've now been with for 4 years, and her name is Kiiara.
Yeah.
And so had Charlie not said anything or tried to find a better band, would I still be with him? And would I have found Kiiara, which would have opened those other doors, those other tours? Because I'm so glad the Kiiara gig happened, because I was not electronic proficient, really.
Uh-huh.
I could set up an SPDS, and I knew how to run lines, and I knew how to run triggers for Aaron if we were doing anything like that. But it was never like 50% electronic, 50% acoustic like
right.
Kiiara, which she's a very electronic pop singer. So I'm glad that happened, because I had to like rewire my brain to understand, okay, how do I approach these songs? They're so electronic driven, and the MD was very poignant on like, it has some songs have to be exactly like the record, some songs you can embellish, and I found the flow of what I needed to accomplish. So it was kind of a cool thing that it happened, honestly. And yeah, I've been with Kiiara now for 4 years.
Cool. Well, that was kind of a question that I asked, that I had in mind, because I checked out some of the music, and one of the things that is kind of curious to me is artists who are totally electronic on record. Like, why bother with a live band at all?
I think sometimes it could be a management thing or an artist thing, and I can't speak for Kiiara, and I think she's in a different mindset now than she was when she first had a band. But bringing a live band just adds a little more energy.
Yeah.
And Kiiara isn't one of those artists who's going to run up and down the stage like Chris Martin from Coldplay or Billie Eilish. Like, they get their cardio in just from the running, and then they also have to sing their ass off, and Kiiara maybe isn't that type of an artist. So I feel like management or her wanted just to give that energy there. So,
yeah.
And what's not more energetic than a drum set? So we had a keyboardist, my good friend Max Mitchell, keys and MD, and then just me on drums, and then her downstage center.
Yeah.
And it really worked. It really did.
Cool. Yeah, I would say like it definitely does add something, and certainly like I mean, I'm sure you've seen it too, but it always seems like I understand it, but there is something anticlimactic about just watching a singer perform the tracks, even though, I mean, that's been going on forever.
But yeah, and that's the only job security I think I do have. Going back to the job we talk, is I chose an instrument that people love to watch.
Yeah,
no
right.
offense to keyboardists and bass players and guitar players, but it's like we like all like we're just it's always moving, and everyone's always like, wow, the drums, like there's so many things to hit, and it's like, yeah, like I'm basically using just two limbs of my body. But watching a bass player sometimes, or watching a guitar player or a keyboardist who's kind of stuck in that one position, I could see why drums, it's always the first to stay. You know, if there's a budget cut, other band members are getting cut, and it's going to be the drums are the last one to stay. So it's the only job security I have.
That's so funny. Well, yeah, I know. I've heard people tell me that's like, oh, I can't tell if, like, particularly a bass player, like I can't tell if they're any good or not.
Yeah. And you know when it's awful when they hit that one wrong note.
Yeah, right.
That's how far bass players have it rough, man. Yeah, one wrong note and it's just you're done for.
Yeah, well, I even remember going. So there's like hippie jam band festival out here, but I went one year. Medeski, Martin, and Wood were playing. This is 15, 16 years ago now. But I remember going with a bunch of my friends from high school, and none of them were into it. After the show, they're like, yeah, they suck. They didn't move around at all. I was like, what, did you not hear it?
Jeez.
But, I mean, that's, you know, a musician's point of view versus not. Like, I didn't care if anybody was moving.
Yeah, I am not the audience member. You know, I live and breathe music. Those people enjoy music, and some of them could be musicians, but yeah, it's a different world for them. My mom would be on board with one of those people. It's like, yeah, they were okay. It's like, just because they stood there.
Yeah.
I mean, they just made like the most amazing music you've ever heard in your life, but you know.
Oh, they were so good. I was like,
yeah.
Anyhow, okay, so are you like running Ableton behind the kit now?
No, I two things about me is I do not like the computer for the show to live on the drum riser.
Mm-hmm.
I did that on a gig. I used to drum for this band called Emblem 3, and I was running tracks for them. I did not set up tracks. I don't pretend to be an MD when it comes to that stuff. I'm beginner at best at Ableton. But I was running tracks. I knew how to cue it up, and I knew how to start the tracks. And we were playing a show at a festival. Literally counted off, start playing the song, middle of the song, I'm in a chorus, stick breaks, flies, hits spacebar, stops the show.
Oh!
And I look around like, why did the track stop? And I'm going, you know, you can't stop. How could you stop? But I think there was like a very important part of that show that was happening in the tracks that just got dropped. And like, we all had to do the best we could. And I looked over and I see the broken stick standing there, and I'm just like, man, I'm never doing that again. Drum risers are shaky. Like you have a subwoofer there, and like everything's moving. There's so many moving parts. I'm like, that needs to live with a keyboardist who can stop and like figure stuff out and like let the drummer drum.
Sure.
Like that doesn't need to be associated with me. So I never try to run tracks unless it's a small local thing.
Right.
Like that. Yeah. But big shows, keep it with the pros.
Sure. I mean, it seems to me that like frequently lands on the drummer to do. I know I was the guy doing that with my old band. But also, of all the places for a broken drumstick to land, you know, it could have gone anywhere.
I know. I wish I had a GoPro filming that show. It was I'm sure the look of terror in my face was like, do I have a job after this song? And I was like, it's not my fault. I didn't have a talkback to talk to anybody, so I just had to be like, sorry guys, and then explain to them after, like, please don't fire me. That was pure accident. And then we finished the tour. The tour was great. That was the only incident I've ever had in 15 years. So it's a good track record.
Yeah, track record.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah. And the audience doesn't know what caused it either. That's the other thing about it. I know I filled in on a gig for a friend of mine, and just this singer, and they were running tracks, like he was running them off of his SPD and using a trigger to like run the click, but the click wasn't part of it. I was used to playing in a case of tracks with the click built in. But in this case, it's like, it's the same tempo, but you got to start and stop it using this trigger. So it doesn't always like, so what happened basically is like, usually I just screw it to the floor tom. So we get to the show and the backline kit has cast iron hoops. The trigger doesn't fit the floor tom. So I put it on my snare, and then first or second song, it's like a cross stick thing. And so I shut it off, And I'm like,
Oh.
shit. And then so I turn it back on, but now it's not in time with the song. I'm like trying to play the song while turning the thing on and off.
Dude.
Oh man, it was so stressful.
That's painful. I can only imagine what that sounds like.
Well, yeah, you get through it, but it's like, and you're just trying to hold it together so that the audience has no idea that any of this is going on because they're there to be in the music. They're not,
entertained, yes.
Yeah, it is the funny thing about that entire world of it. But I know Ableton is something that I would like to be better at, but I just never seem to. Like when the lockdown happened, Berkeley put out that Intro to Ableton Live course, which I don't know if you've seen, but anyway, it was like perfect opportunity. But I like signed up for 5 courses and didn't do any of them.
God.
Because the other thing that happened is like everything is online now. So like an extra few hours a week of screen time to work on something that's also on the computer. It's still on the.
You can any problem you have, just Google it. Google any problem Ableton, and then there's your result. And there's a video. There's 10 videos of the same guy, or different people doing that problem you have. So, but I like learning from mistakes. So I have it now, and I have it hooked up to my kid, and if I'll just do demo recordings at home, and then I'll figure out what does what and why it does that, and how to route things, and then how to bounce things back. That was really just all I needed, and how to also chop up samples.
Yeah.
But I've already seen my friends do that, and it kind of just came naturally to me. So I haven't been struggling too bad.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I mean, it's a thing too. As I learned from exploring a little bit, like so many things, it's a tool, and people have their own ways of using it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool. So you're still playing with Kiiara, but obviously you're not touring right now.
Yeah, no touring for the foreseeable future. And I actually finished a tour it was just at the end of February 28th. I was out with Noah Cyrus, who's an artist. We just finished a show in Dubai and London and New York, and we were hearing rumors that airports were shutting down and there's a virus going around, and we're just like, well, maybe it's world news, maybe it's not US news, maybe it's not going to happen in the US. We're like, let's just go home and figure it out. And less than 2 weeks later, all the airports were shut, and like people were, toilet paper was off the shelf. It was just real quick. And I knew right away, I was like, well, there goes touring for, I thought it was only going to be through this summer.
That's what everyone wanted to think.
Yeah, we're like, oh, it'll be summer and then we'll be back. And I now think we're probably still another year away into probably 2020, if not fall 2021, I think 2022 might feel a little normal again. But again, who knows? No one knows.
No, well, I know it is a thing. I'd heard from, backline production people out here being told by their bosses, like, yeah, if you can hold out, 2 or 3 years, like, we'll have a job for you when you come back. But
I know it's tough, but there has been some music stuff popping up, like the Usher thing, and then the Dove Cameron performance I did, and I just did a live stream with Kiiara 2 weeks ago, and then I've done music videos for some friends and people I hadn't met before, and just random things. I'll do whatever you can, and it seems like live stream is the way of this temporary future, which I'm not a fan of, and it's as good as it can be, but it's still not.
It's still weird.
Nothing beats a show, man. And I miss a tour bus, and just like all my peers and coworkers, we miss the airports and the late nights and the early lobby calls. Like all of that is just, it's devastating that we don't have that anymore, and don't know if we'll have it again. Yeah.
Well, and part of the fun, I mean, something you were alluding to earlier is like traveling around and seeing friends of yours who live in different places, and like you might only run into them because of this.
Yeah.
But I mean, what can you do? It's also like the entire industry that's in a tailspin. So it is interesting that everyone has had to kind of scramble because even this podcast, prior to this year, I've only ever talked to people in person. And it wasn't because the technology wasn't available. I just didn't know how to use it. Mm-hmm. So I never had to.
Yeah, well, we're learning new things, and we're doing the best we can. And I picked up art again in the middle of quarantine. I hadn't done that in more than 15 years. And I was like, what am I going to lose? I got all this time on my hands. Let's just do something. So I started sketching and drawing and taking animation classes online for fun. And that was it. And drumming as much as you can. But there was a point where I was drumming so much for the first like month of quarantine. I was like, this is great. And then I hit a wall. I was like, who am I practicing for? Like, am I going to play a show again ever? Like it was, it was scary, man. I can like, it's just the mindset I had going into quarantine was just not healthy in any way.
Dark.
I was just so upset at just getting a complete career loss like that, because 100% of my income is from touring.
Yeah.
I'll do local gigs and here and there and like some teaching, sporadic teaching, but nothing enough to pay the bills. And I was just like, what do I do? And I just didn't want to live on unemployment. And I was at a loss. And I feel like I'm more in a healthier situation now, mentally, physically, and back to a normal practice drumming routine. But yeah, I mean, I had to, just like all my other friends, I had to find a job in the meantime just to survive and pay rent,
Yeah, well, and it can get dark too. And especially like, I maybe you are like, had a healthy perspective on this, but I know for certainly for myself, like environmental factors play a bigger role than you think in your own kind of mental state. So, even just being like stuck in the house will actually add to your kind of perception of what's going on in the world. So yeah, speaking of which, so you got a day gig at the moment. You're doing a COVID testing?
I am, yeah, and not the nasal one. It's not the painful one. I have to always put that out there for everyone.
Have you had to take that test?
I have had to, yes. So all the live stream and the Usher thing and Kiiara thing, everything was the nasal swab, just because that's a quicker result. But no, I found a job 6 months ago at this company called Core, which is a nonprofit ran by Sean Penn, and he started it for the Haiti relief disaster, and then now he's working on the disaster that is the United States and the inadequate testing that we have in the United States.
Right.
And yeah, so I just kind of help administer tests to patients. I walk them through it. It's very safe, very clean. I get tested regularly. And it pays the bills. So I couldn't ask for anything more.
Sure. Do you feel like do you have to wear like full kind of protective equipment?
Yeah, full PPE, hazmat suit, N95, surgical mask, face shield, long sleeve pants and gloves. And I now have had this job through 3 heat waves.
Oh my God.
And in LA, which all reached, if not 99, plus 100. And it was work. And I worked my butt off at that job. And but it was nice. I just wanted something. I wanted to feel essential. I wanted to feel like I was doing something. And I also needed a job. And it was tough finding a job. I couldn't find a job at a grocery store. No one was hiring. The only available thing was like DoorDash or Postmates, which I couldn't mentally take myself there.
What's Postmates?
Just like the delivery service where you order food on your phone and then somebody picks it up for you, some stranger, and then brings it to your door for you.
Yeah, here it's like skip the dishes. Same thing.
Yes, same thing. Yeah. And I knew people were better at that than me, and I didn't want that learning curve of like struggling to figure out my routes and food and all that stuff. I was just like, that's not my thing. And a buddy of mine was working at the Core site and was just like, hey, we need people. Do you want to do it? And I started as a volunteer. I was on unemployment for a little bit, just to kind of see how I liked it. Mm-hmm. And then I got offered a full-time paid job working for them. And then since then, I've actually left the field. I'm now inventory manager for our site, ordering PPE for our volunteers and just kind of putting myself wherever I need to be, working with my site manager and working with everybody there. So it's cool, but I've never done like a nonprofit thing before. I've never done community outreach programs. Like it was a new thing for me, and I've always wanted to do it. And it kind of just appeared in my life. And I was like, cool, let's try it, and here we are 6 months later.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's important work right now.
Mhm.
And it's certainly something that like you can feel good about doing, you know, and like that kind of is an antidote to like,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be a musician. Is that ever going to happen again?
Well, the only tough thing I'm dealing with right now is people are starting to flee. People that were in the movie industry and TV industry, they're now leaving core because they're getting their jobs back. And we have a lot of nursing staff who have just then finished their test and are leaving our site to go be a nurse. And so I see all these people who I've worked with for 6 months now being like, great working with you. Like, I'm going back to my life. And I'm sitting here like, no one's talking about the music industry.
No.
Like, we're not anywhere near coming back. Like, am I doing this until we run out of funding? And then what do I do?
Yeah. Then
scramble again to find another job? It's just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. And I feel I'm happy for my other friends. And I so desperately want to be that person where I'm like, I finally am going back on tour. Like, good luck with the nonprofit. Peace out. But I'm nowhere near yet there. So I just got to roll with the punches.
Well, this is it. And the speculation has been that the music, like live music, is going to be the last thing to come back to because just the nature of it, right? Like,
yeah.
You get a bunch of, because even the, you know, like the Chase Rice concert that everybody was so upset about.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, but you know, the arguments in their defense were that like they did do it legally. The capacity was like quarter capacity or whatever. The problem is that everybody gathered in front of the stage. It's like put them together, and that's what they do. So it's like, and you know, and it is also the thing of like, whatever. You see it a lot, but it's like, what? I'm supposed to protect you, like.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's I feel like it's not a good argument because it's like really because it's like because it's invisible. And I mean, so I teach lessons to children, and a thing that I often try to get them to understand with like starting the drums is like, would you want to learn to ride a skateboard, or we want to learn to ride a bike on, you know, a driveway with some grass beside it on flat ground, or would you want to learn on a steep hill? Because if you're playing too fast, you're on the steep hill.
Yeah.
But the the difference is if you're on the hill, like you can see the injury ahead, you can feel it, you get scared. If you're just like sitting behind a drum kit, like you don't feel it because it's gradual, you don't understand the fact that you're like slowing down your own progress and you may eventually cause an injury. It's not immediate, and I feel like this is the same way, especially where it's like you don't even know if you had it until 5 days later. Like, you know, it's like I've seen that thing that's like, well, I'm supposed to wear a mask to protect you. Like, I don't go knocking the McDonald's out of your hand or whatever. But it's like, it's not the right metaphor. It's more like, well, shouldn't I be allowed to, you know, go shoot whoever I want? Like,
yeah. Well, what seems to, I keep this like pattern that I see is people that have traveled outside the United States and seen the rest of the world, who understand like that this virus is not just in the United States, not just in Canada, it is everywhere. That's the tough part, that some people who are, you know, so landlocked, people who haven't left their state, haven't seen the rest of the world, don't understand like this really does affect the entire world. It's not just us, you know, stuck at home in the United States or Canada. And these people who keep doing these concerts for whatever reason they want to do, these gatherings, not even peaceful protests, but like you have a band playing and you hired a sound crew, like that's a concert. And if everyone there is not wearing a mask, like that just seems to be a problem. And we just got to deal with the way the world works now. And I hated the mask for the first week, and now I love the mask. I'm fine with it. I'll wear it. I feel comfortable behind it now. Like I found my comfy mask. I think everyone had really awful masks at first, and everyone like, this is it for the rest of our lives. It's like, no, like find a better one and then you'll be good. And I found a company that I really, really like. So,
that's good. I still don't love it. I'll do it, but I've got an assortment for sure. What is the company mask?
I'll
can you describe it for
plug
us?
it. It's called Airband, and I don't own this company. I don't work for them by any means, but they actually supplied masks for us at my job at Core, And I then I looked up, I found the company right away, and I was like, I'm buying 3 of these masks. They're perfect. It had the perfect tension, covered the face, the nose bridge didn't fall down, and it fit my face. I know everyone has a different jawline and facial, I have a giant head, and I needed this mask, and it just really fit me really well. So I love that mask.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, those are the challenges. Certainly I find it's like they pull on the back of the ears, or like it'll like, when I talk, it comes out. And then of course for me too, it's like,
you got to get defogger on your glasses. It's like a spray. Yeah. It's like a spray, like a lens cleaner, and then you wipe it down, and then you spray it again, you wipe it down, and then it causes like no condensation to form, I think. Yeah, I think
I did not know about that. I've just been wearing contacts when I could deal with it.
It's on Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah, I will. That's a good tip, man. Thank you. Yeah, cool. All right. I think I probably got to run myself. If I can, philosophize just a little bit, it's like, you were talking about, you don't know, we don't know when things are coming back, but that is also just the name of the game, the career. You talk about different stages of your career, and there's been several points, sounds like to me, where it's like, I don't know what's next. I mean, certainly my life has looked like that.
Yes, no, keep going.
So, I mean, I was going to say this is another
that's
evolution.
Why I don't feel shocked by it. I feel like I was trained to deal with this pandemic. It's just like, okay, it's a waiting game, and just hang in there mentally. You get through this, and maybe it'll come back. And if it doesn't, there'll be something else. If concerts aren't allowed ever again in the future, then I'll be considered a relic of the past, and like, that's cool. But then there'll be something else. There'll be some sort of digital hologram thing that we can all log into, and we'll be playing shows some other way. Like, who knows? Like, I've been really trying to scratch my brain and be like, what is next? Because that would be really cool to know, to think, like what is going to happen next. And I can't
invest, be on the leading edge of it. But, well, but people have been even doing that. Like, there's like the Tupac holograms or whatever. And there's also, I mean, the like rehearsal, the thing that Center Stage invested in.
Well, that's
like,
funny.
That was
I was just talking about the other
world.
day, like how that company bankrupted Center Staging, which now might be a cool thing to have. I think the only drawback they had was no artist wanted to sign up because they didn't want to show an audience member like the bad side of them, or like to see them maybe get upset, because it was live cameras all over, and if anything happened, it was like step out of the room maybe, or it's going to happen on camera, and nobody wanted that. They're like, I don't want them to see that. I want them to see the polished end product. But maybe now there's some sort of in between that can happen. Like, you'll see like a quick rehearsal of a band, and then maybe you'll get to see them perform too. So, but who knows? Maybe that is the future.
Yeah. The question for me too with that stuff is like, who is it interesting to? But I mean, as somebody who actually you do that for work. But also it is just like the early adopter thing, right? It's like there are all those like 90s internet companies that like went bust that maybe might have been profitable now, but they were just too early. So yeah, who knows? Yeah. Anyway, so great to talk to you, man. Thank you so much for being here. I was going to say, what do you got coming up? Anything you want to plug? Where can people find you online?
I'm big on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Zarzeka. And I'm on Twitter, but I really don't post too much on there. And I have a website, just my name, tylerzarzeka.com. And I do have something coming up that I signed an NDA for that I cannot talk about, but I'm very excited about it. It's something that I've been wanting for quite some time. It is drumming related. It is not teching related. And I think it airs in 2 or 3 weeks. So, and I've never been able to say this on any sort of interview, which is like so nice and refreshing. But yeah, I have something coming out that just keep following me and to see what it is. Thank you.
Good for you, man. Very exciting. One other thing I was going to just, as and like of no import to anybody necessarily, but I noticed in a video on your Instagram you're wearing an Adventure Drums hoodie. Really? He was one of my guests my first season. I was like, the only time I've been to California, I drove down to San Diego to talk to Brad Davis. But because before I started doing this, I thought I might do a YouTube channel, and then I found Adventure Drums, and I was like, that is like as close to what I would like to do, and it already exists.
How could you not love everything he's done? His product reviews for drum heads and sticks, like I needed that. Like, everyone is always so serious, and like just his comedy approach to that was like really amazing. And he's a funny dude. I've never met the guy. I've seen him at NAMM, but I didn't want to be that guy. But when I saw he had a sweatshirt that said I don't know how to drum, I was like, I have to have that sweater, because I always have that mentality. I'm always like, man, I'm never as good as I want to be. Like, I'm always practicing and reaching. So I bought that sweater being like, I just want to be better. And I also bought it because every time I was setting up Aaron's drums in an arena, local crew would come by and be like, hey man, so like, do you know how to drum? Like, do you have any drumsticks and all that stuff? And I'm like, no, like, I don't drum at all. Like, I don't like, I just set up his drums. Like, I don't even know anything. And then so I got that sweater as like a joke, and it was, I wore that almost every Usher tour. I brought that sweater out. Yeah.
That is so funny, man. Do you know where the name Björnt comes from? He told me it's an onomatopoeia it's the sound of somebody playing slap bass.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's a funny word.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, very funny. All right, man. Much appreciated. Hope will you be doing COVID testing today?
Tomorrow. Going back to the grind, yeah.
Cool. Well, I would say we appreciate it, speaking on behalf of the world. And looking forward to, I'm going to be looking forward to hearing the mystery.
Yeah, I know. It's cool.
Mystery thing is.
I like having that tension there that something's coming.
All right. Thanks so much to Tyler for being here. Thanks to my brother Micah for stitching that together. I know the audio was weird. I think from the sounds of it, I was talking into a microphone the whole time, but I don't think that the microphone was like turned on. I think it's just the built-in mic on my laptop, because you can hear me pressing buttons at certain points. Anyhow, I think that the content delivers. Had a really great time talking to that dude. So, if you like the show, why don't you give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share, subscribe, friend, pal, friend request, message request. Maybe don't do that one, but you could tell your friends. You could navigate to @LearnDrums on Instagram, and you could share the content therein to your story. You could repost it to your timeline. You could go to learndrums.ca and find the actual page with the notes for the show, and you could share that. If you use legacy social media like Facebook, if you use Twitter, you could tweet about it. If you're on TikTok, maybe you could make up a dance to the episode. I actually, the theme song it should be on TikTok. I put it out through DistroKid. And I found some other stuff of mine on TikTok. I have a TikTok account, but it's my band account, and I can't figure out how to set up multiples because it's tied to your phone number on your device. So I can't recover my account. There is a @LearnDrums TikTok that I'm locked out of. Maybe one day it will exist. Do we cover them? The Facebook app family. We have nothing on Netflix. There's a YouTube channel. Kind of sporadically updated, but there's some neat content there. Lots for you to do. All right, take care of yourself, take care of each other, stay safe out there. See you in 2 weeks. Bye for now.